Here we go.
Well, welcome to another episode of Anomalies. I believe this is actually our 100th episode.
Ooh, yay.
So it's something to celebrate. And we do have a guest worth celebrating today. His name is Les Velez, and I'm here with my co-host Gwen Farrell. I'm Dave Jinks, and we're going to get into a very interesting conversation with Les here. I hope to cover a lot of things, ET, and maybe some other related things. And Les has quite an extensive background and expertise, and Gwen will outline that as quickly as she can here so we can jump into the conversation after that. But go ahead, Gwen.
Okay, all right. Our guest today, Les Velez, is a true pioneer in the area of UFO and contact phenomenon. He graduated from the University of Vermont with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration. He is a U.S. Army veteran and former Vice President of Luscombe Engineering. In 1991, he joined MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, where he served as a field investigator, training coordinator, assistant state director, and led various groups within MUFON that were dedicated to assisting experiencers of UFO contact. He presently holds the position of research consultant to MUFON's Experiencer Resource Team. In 1994, he co-founded OPUS, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, an organization devoted to assisting experiencers of UFO contact and paranormal events. He continues to serve as chairman of the Board of OPUS and is the author of the book entitled The Unknown Other and the Existential Proposition of Alien Contact. Les Velez, welcome to Anomalies.
Thank you, Gwen. Thank you, Dave. It's great to be here. I really appreciate it.
Good, good. Dave, I'm sure you've got some questions. You want to lead off with the discussion?
Well, sure. I've got a ton of questions as usual. And I want to start with Les's view on what has been going on. Let's just make it contemporary here. I know he's got lots of info about the past, but I want to talk about today and what's happening with this David Grusch guy, the Pentagon guy, sanctioned by the government to talk about crazy things like recovered flying saucers and potentially alien bodies. I want to know what your view of this whole thing is, Les. If you call it a circus, and it may get even more crazy in the next week. I think their hearings start on July 26th.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah, it's there's a lot of things going on, and there seems to be a quickening, if you will, of these types of stories that are coming out. Grusch is certainly, having been part of the geospatial organization of the government, has quite impressive credentials. So he has been in contact with people that seem to be in the know with regard to such things as retrieved UFOs, UAPs, as they are now called, and possible alien entities that have been retrieved during these recoveries. Yes, they're going to have a congressional hearing, and Representative Burleson and is going to be involved with that, along with Tim Burkett, Senator Burkett, and they had a press conference yesterday that was incredible. I don't know if you saw it, but the bottom line on this was that they were talking about getting stonewalled at every turn and trying to get this all set up. And they and Representative Luna and Representative Moskowitz and Burleson went to a facility, a Air Force facility, and they tried to gain entry into this. And the general that was involved with that base basically decided that he wasn't going to let them in. Well, that didn't sit very well with them, and so they contacted the Pentagon and another agency, and eventually got in there. And the reason why they wanted to get in because they wanted to clarify some information that they had received. And So anyway, I guess there was some heated arguments going on with this, and so on Wednesday, Grusch is going to talk along with Graves, one of the pilots, Navy pilots, and Faber, another one of the Navy pilots that had come into contact with these Tic Tacs, and so it's going to be interesting to see, because that last congressional hearing where our government people didn't know anything. They couldn't answer a single question. And, well, we don't know. I'm not familiar with that. You know, it's like, come on, guys. You're in front of these congressmen and senators that you should be, you know, totally involved and know what the heck is going on, which is scary if they were truly not aware of some of these things. So then I also did an interview myself. I do these interviews on a fairly regular basis, and I had a gentleman that was ex-CIA, and John Ramirez, and he told me during that interview, and then subsequently, that there's going to be some people with 4 stars on their shoulders talking about the fact that, yes, we have these UFOs, UAPs, we have alien bodies, and this is supposed to come out, as he told me during the initial interview, sometime between Labor Day and Thanksgiving. And then when I talked to him on the phone, because I wanted to ask him about this Grusch situation, and he said that, well, Grusch is just the tip of the iceberg, and that there's going to be a lot more people coming forward. And what he talked about, you know, this big revelation, he said, is probably now going to be in October. But I'm thinking, the way things are going, it's going to probably be even sooner. So it could be in August or certainly in September that there'll be further revelations with regard to the fact that, hey, we're not alone, folks. We have these objects, and you know, and supposedly we're trying to reverse engineer these things, and perhaps we've already done that.
Well, okay, that opens a lot of cans of worms, which is how we like it here on Anomalies. But let's go one can at a time. You know, I can't shake my feeling, having, you know, been familiarized myself over the decades with Project Blue Book and Grudge and, you know, all these other, the Condon Report, whatever, all these attempts by Congress, even at very high levels, supposedly to pull some of this information out of the military-industrial complex. Why, after 70 plus years of obfuscation at every turn, would these defense contractors willingly, really, or even not willingly, why would they let any of this information get out just because Congress finally develops a spine and you know, tacks on a little law to say shame on you, military-industrial contractors complex, for hiding this stuff for more than half a century? How is that going to force these people who have a separate space agency and a shadow government, you know, by any meaning of the word? We all know that they control a lot of money that isn't in the public domain. It's not on the public ledger, all that stuff. How is this, you know, going to result in true disclosure or release of the you know, the stuff that they're promising? How is that going to happen is what I want to know.
Yeah.
How is it not going to be just like you explained? Congressman comes and knocks on the door and says, I deserve to see this, you know, and they say, no, you don't have the clearance, or we don't know where it is, or, you know, we're bound by other laws that you don't even know about. How are we going to break through that giant dam? Or will
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge, and they said that in the news conference, you know, yesterday, that at every turn they've been stymied, or people have tried to stymie them as far as being able to do what they're doing now, but they've managed to get it this far. And I think that there's a drumbeat going on now, and Chuck Schumer just recently, you know, proposed a bill that is going to force these military industrial complex type people to be more forthcoming. And whether or not that's going to fly, that's going to be an interesting factor in and of itself, whether or not that can be actually rammed through and then put it on these people. The bottom line is from a intelligence and security type of a situation, if we do have the capability to have craft that defy gravity and can travel at incredible speeds and things of that nature, we certainly wouldn't want to tell our adversaries that that is going on. And so there may be some type of a revelation behind closed doors to the federal government that yes, we do have these. They are. We figured it out. That we know. And I had lunch with Lou Elizondo. This is a couple of years ago before COVID shut everything down, and he was telling me that they believe they figured out how these things operate, which blew me away. And he said it's a reaction between the skin of the craft, what the materials are in those craft, and a very small power source, and not like what's his name?
Lazar.
Lazar talks about 115. He says no, they don't even need that. There's something else going on. So it's there's so many turns and curves that come down the pike on this thing, and your guess is as good as mine where this is going to end up. But I think there seems to be a lot more impetus behind this effort than ever before. It's never been like this. I mean, you look at the Kennedy assassination and the fact that they still haven't released information, and supposedly everybody's dead. But then again, if you believe Bush was involved, the Bush family was involved in this, the old man anyway, then, those people are still alive. Not the old man, of course, but although I've even heard stories about the fact that he is alive somewhere. But anyway, that's a whole other story.
Yeah, it's like you said, it will definitely be interesting. And I think it is a sort of a quantum leap over what we've had. I have severe doubts, and a lot of those doubts materialize around the mass media's reaction or non-reaction. Really, I watched a panel with Dolan and Linda Moulton Howe and all the some of the big names in the field, and everyone except Richard Dolan was very excited about what this, disclosure. It's finally here. Tomorrow, the news will be full of all this coverage, and investigators will be tripping over each other trying to get to the interview of the century or the millennium. Dolan was sitting there going, come on, guys, let's introduce a little bit of reality into here, because what happened was essentially nothing the next day. And it's continued, and now you go look on CNN or MSNBC or Fox News, all you see is mass shootings, missing blonde girls, who are on vacation, blah, blah, blah.
And Trump.
Celebrity breakups, Trump.
Yeah, I was really surprised after this major news conference that they had. This thing was over half an hour long. There was questions and answers that went on. I have it, and I would figure that I would see it on CNN or MSNBC or any of these major outlets, and I still haven't seen a thing about it.
Well, that's what's so worrying, is that you can have these giant revelations, which objectively are the biggest revelations we've seen in humanity. I mean, if it's the potential to change the world is there in the statement of this one man, and we all know that there are dozens more coming down the pipeline, and yet the media appears to be oblivious at best and suppressive at worst. And I think we all know what the answer is there. It's kind of both, actually, but if we don't have the help of the mass media, I don't see how this thing can get off the ground. Basically, that has to change, I think.
Thank goodness for people like News Nation and a couple of other places like that, or the Debrief, and now with a number of other people, Cole Hart, who's out there doing his thing. But I think what's going on is the fact that there's so many podcasters out there doing this that the public is starting to get the message. And whether the mainstream media is or not, that almost doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is this word is getting out, and so I can only keep my fingers crossed that we're able to. And I think maybe next week that might be a telling factor, whether or not the mainstream media really picks up on this and really talks about it in a significant way.
Yeah, sustain the momentum with a constant stream of insiders with credentials. I'm going to jump this over to Gwen here after my next question. It may lead into more of her expertise and yours too. Do you have a sense of what contactees think about the latest revelations and the disclosure in general? Have you got a sense of what people are they saying? Oh, we knew it was coming, or are they saying, "Hey, wait a minute, this is a false flag"? Do you have a consensus, or is it all over the place?
Well, it is kind of a mixed bag. You have people that feel that you got to be really wary of who this person is. Grusch, is he just throwing some stuff out there that will be debunked, and then this will crush it, push it down to the types of things that we've seen in the past. And then you have other people that are very positive about it and saying, wow, with those kind of credentials, that looks really great. And we're keeping our fingers crossed that this is going to be something that is going to move it to the next level, and that we're going to see some very interesting facts coming out. So.
Okay. Well, I got more questions, but I'll let Gwen get a few in here.
Okay, thank you. I'll just say briefly that what I see with my groups goes right along with what Les just said. It is a mixed bag, but this whole phenomenon has always been a big mixed bag. So those of us who are here trying to assist experiencers of contact, we just kind of keep doing what we do. And along those lines, I would like Les to tell us about OPUS. And the work that organization does, working with experiencers. And I'd like to, maybe we can bring it around at the end, sort of back to where we were. But yeah, Les, please tell us about OPUS.
Yeah, well, you have to kind of go back in history to understand how this all came about. And for me, when I was 11 years old, I saw this object and it scared the hell out of me. And I ran into the house, and by the time I got my father to come out, it was gone. And he says, oh, it's probably just a beacon of light reflecting off a cloud or something, because it was late October. And so it was already kind of dark. And I didn't believe that. I went to the library and started reading books on UFOs. And George Adamski was the big writer back in those days, the late 50s. And so I really got into it for a while. But, I got a little bit older, and girls became a little bit more interesting in my life. And kind of forgot about the whole thing. And then, finished high school, went off to college, went into the service, got married. And then in 1985, I had the opportunity to buy into a company in Northern California, Luscombe Engineering. Excuse me. And so I picked up the San Jose Mercury News, as it was called back in those days. It's now called just the Mercury News. And there was an article about Stanton Friedman, this nuclear physicist that was going to come to San Jose City College to talk about UFOs and the government cover-up. And it was like, oh my God, somebody threw a switch. And it was like, I got to go see this guy. And I went there expecting to see a handful of people, but the auditorium was packed. He gave an incredible, presentation. And I was really, jazzed. I was ready to go and fight the world or whatever and try to understand. I was a big nuts and bolts kind of a guy back in those days. And as I was walking out in the foyer, MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, founded in 1969, had a table there. And they have a journal that they publish on a monthly basis. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to get that, read about the cases. And after a while, that wasn't enough for me. And so I found out that they had a field investigator training course. And so I took that and shortly thereafter became a field investigator. And the cases that I got involved with were not only people telling me they saw something, but then they were telling me that they had contact with these non-human intelligences. And, the first one I got involved with, I was just not ready for that. And as I said, I was basically a nuts and bolts kind of a guy. But then more people that I investigated said the same thing, that they had contact with these non-human intelligences. And then one day, one of the people said, do you know of other people having experiences like that? And I said, yes, I do. Next thing I know, I'm facilitating a support group in San Jose in my office. And so that's when things really got interesting because of the stories that came about. And one day I got a call from the head of MUFON, the international director, and he said, can I give this reporter your contact information because he wants to do a story on UFOs and investigations and things of that nature. I said, sure. So anyway, I met this guy, and I was written up in the Monterey Coast Weekly paper. And shortly thereafter, a woman called me that had read the article and said, you know what, I would really like to understand what's going on with my brainwaves when I'm in contact with these entities. And I said to myself, I don't know how I could possibly help this person. And then she said she was working with an emergency room doctor down in Carmel. And that kind of threw another switch for me because I had a doctor friend, Dr. Eugene Lipson, who actually ended up being a co-founder with me of the organization OPUS. And I said, why don't we go down there? You can meet this other doctor. You guys can talk, and we can figure out what's going on down there. So we did. We went down this Saturday afternoon. And as we walked into her house, there was a picture on the wall, her standing on the back of a boat, a rather large one, in beautiful crystal clear blue water, and so it looked like it was a Caribbean type of a thing. And I said, so what's this picture all about? And what are you doing? And she said, well, I was helping these treasure hunters. And I said, really? How were you doing that? She said, well, I was in contact with the captain of the galleon that had gone down. So that started the afternoon off in a very interesting note. And what we subsequently found out, because she started telling us things about ourselves that there was no possible way that she could know, because we didn't know her from Adam, basically, that after a near-death experience, she had become very psychic. And so she was able to tap into a lot of different entities. And some of them, she was written up many transcripts and put these into little booklets about her contact with these various entities. Anyway, we came away that afternoon saying, okay, how can we possibly help someone like this? And that's when OPUS was hatched. And then in 1994, we officially became a 501c3 nonprofit recognized by the IRS, which always cracks me up. The IRS and the paranormal. That's I don't know how that fits together, but anyway. So we put the organization together, and basically what we do, our mission is simply put to help people having paranormal experiences. And what is paranormal experiences? Well, it can certainly be contact with non-human intelligences, but it also could be spiritual awakening, Kundalini awakening, poltergeist activity, demons, angels, you name it. It's such a broad spectrum of types of things. But as it's turned out, over the years, we predominantly are contacted by people telling us that they're in contact with these non-human intelligences. And so what do we do with these people when they contact us? So we have basically three things now that we provide. One is a totally confidential online support group. We have almost 400 people in the support group that are able to talk 24/7 to one another, tell their stories, ask their questions. And the thing, I believe, this has probably been the most helpful thing for people because they understand that they're not alone. There are other people having same kinds or very similar types of things that are going on in their lives. And it seems to be such a calming influence to be able to understand that and to be able to communicate with other people. The second thing that we do is we have a referral network of mental health practitioners and hypnotherapists. And the things that are happening now, these days, with these revelations that are starting to occur, we believe there's going to be a lot more people coming forward. And so we're looking for more licensed mental health practitioners and certified hypnotherapists. And so we put that out there and hope to have more people come and that understand this phenomenon. And that's another part of what's going on too, is more of an educational process where we provide books and various materials to these people so that they can dig into this subject and better understand it. Because what we're looking for are people that have a neutral position on this. We don't want them to say, well, oh, this person is crazy and they need to go see a psychiatrist, or that we need to give them drugs or something like that, because that's not what we want to have happen. These people are not, they do not have a psychopathology. And the omega-3 study that we did going back to like 2010, which was funded by MUFON, came up with that finding that these people, we had 71 people that felt that they had been contacted, and 51 is a control group. And none of the people had a psychopathology. None of them were fantasy prone. And but there was issues in childhood. There was some kind of trauma, psychosocial trauma, that might have caused them to dissociate in a certain way, but not in a psychopathological way. And so these are the kind of findings that you look at. And when you talk to these people, and that's the third thing that we do, is we've just recently set up what we call our EST, our Experiencer Support Team, that are people that have a tremendous background in a lot of these phenomena and are able to talk to these and do to these people and basically do triage with them to understand what it is they're looking for. And so we gotta have a lot of cases where contact us, and there's a support button on our website, opusnetwork.org, that they can just hit that support button and they fill out this very short form, and as far as what they're looking for. And 9 times out of 10, they want somebody to talk to them. And I think that's another factor that's really positive, that it's not just a website that, nobody's talking to. Here's a live person that you can talk to and bring up the types of things that are going on with you and the types of things that you are looking for. So those are the 3 main components. And then, of course, if you look at our website, there's a lot of other areas. We have articles, some have been written by Glenn, as a matter of fact, talking about this subject. And we have books that we recommend. And then I've done a number of interviews that are also on there with people like Linda Moulton Howe, Terry Lovelace. I mentioned John Ramirez, the ex-CIA guy, which was that interview itself got the most hits of any, almost 8,000 hits, which for us that was a big deal. To have that many people take a look at this thing, but he had some tremendous information to put out there. So that's kind of it, Glenn. I mean, but some of the stories that come out of the support group, this couple came to our group one time, and they're both amateur pilots, and they submitted a report to MUFON, and I investigated the case along with a more senior investigator. And basically what had happened to them, they were in a park in north of Santa Cruz, California. And they were coming out, it was at dusk, and they had been picnicking up there. And they saw this light over the ocean, and this light got bigger and bigger and bigger until it was over their heads. And it was a small, like about the size of a small Learjet, triangular shaped craft. And it was totally silent, and it kind of went past them into this canyon behind them. and they noticed another light over the ocean. And this thing got bigger and bigger. Again, the same thing. It was triangular craft about the size of a small Learjet and totally silent, moved past them. First one, they felt they were looking at it. The second one, they felt it was looking at them. And they became frightened at that point. And getting out of this park where they were, because I had gone up there with them, it's steep and it's very overgrown. It's rocky. It's difficult even during the day to get out of there, let alone at night. And this was already getting to the point where it was getting dark. They felt like they were on automatic pilot. They felt like they drifted out of there. And they got down to their car, and that's the last thing they remember until 3 hours later. They ended up in a restaurant, which generally is only 5 to 10 minutes away from where they were. And they had no recollection as how they got there. So they came to one of the support group meetings, and evidently they developed a rash after they had had this experience. And they went to his doctor, and he says, well, it's not poison oak or poison ivy, which there's a lot of it up in that particular part of the park. And they went to her doctor, and her doctor said, well, I'm not sure. It's like, maybe it's something internal, some reaction to something. Anyway, they had taken a picture of it, and they brought it to the support group meeting. And they showed it around to the group, and almost without exception, they all said they had a similar kind of a rash at one time or another. And so one of the people in the group said, I think I know what that's from. And so we said, okay, well, what do you think it's from? It's a reaction to the fluid that they dip you in when they bring you on board the craft to sanitize you. And so that was an interesting revelation. And then I recently, this is 30 years ago that this case happened. This couple called me up. This was like 2 months ago. And we started to talk about the case again. And they were starting to remember more things as time has gone by. And the woman said that she now remembers vividly being dipped in this tank of fluid of some sort. So, this is the kind of stuff that comes up, and we get 2 to 3 at least a week, if not more, people contacting us. I think we got like 3 yesterday, as a matter of fact, new people that wanted to get into the support group. And they're telling their stories in a short little write-up, but there's a lot more to be said and talked about in the support group itself. And they open up and they talk about it, and they get a lot of feedback, and the group is really good that way. There's a lot of knowledge in that group, and but we, nobody has all the answers, or any of, for that matter. Do we truly understand, all of this or any of this? That's the big question.
Thank you for letting us know what OPUS is all about. Obviously, doing a lot and having done a lot for almost 30 years now. Mm-hmm. So congratulations on that coming up next year. All the news that's coming from the press and the government lately is focused on sightings, physical sightings mm-hmm. of physical objects, but not about the possible beings who created those objects or maybe piloting those objects, or and interacting with human beings, which is actually an essential part of the story. How can an organization like OPUS change that, or help that knowledge that there's more than just a light in the sky come out in a public way?
And what's going on is like what's happening here today. You put a forum together here that we can talk about these kind of things, and you have an audience that's listening to this kind of thing. And I think that's the kind of thing. And I mentioned to you before we got on here that this is my 4th show this week, and so we're trying to get the word out as best we can that, hey, there's something else going on besides these things just being up there and flying around. Who's driving these things, right? And what's their agenda? And I think who better to ask those questions other than the experiencers that have had contact. And that's the next phase. I think we have to take this one thing at a time with the federal government to understand that, hey, and Lou Elizondo, I think, took the right approach by saying this could be an issue. This could be, something that we need to be very, very concerned with. And that's probably the only way the government would have gotten really excited about this or really started to dig in, that this could be a security issue for the United States and the world, for that matter. And so, but the next phase, the government is already talking to experiencers. They've done many things. I mean, Gary Nolan from Stanford and Kit Green, the CIA guy, they've been working with experiencers. They've done MRIs on their brains. They found that there's more connections in the caudate putamen area of their brains that gives them the ability to be, more psychic, to be telepathic. And it's like an evolutionary process that's going on with these people. And, I think that eventually everyone is going to have that, and those that don't have it will eventually just die out because these people are connecting with other people that have those same traits. So it's a process, and we're just not at that junction yet. This is the first phase to understand that these things, what are they? Who's driving these things? Things of that nature. Then the next thing is to open up and start talking to experiencers. And I think, people have asked me, have you been visited by the three-letter organizations or anything like that? And, to the best of my knowledge, no. I think, they appreciate the fact that we're keeping a lid on things, and that these people aren't going, running to their Congress people and senators and saying, hey, I need help because these entities are coming to me all the time, and we're taking care of that for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, it certainly is true that the contact phenomena is huge, and it involves many different types of contact. And I've recently heard some experiencers saying that they were disappointed when they found out who the witnesses are going to be at the next hearing next week. None of them are known experiencers. However, we do know, as I said, physical contact is not the only kind of contact. There's psychic, there's intellectual, and these people who have seen things, even if it doesn't seem like contact, is really, truly a contact, an intellectual contact, because they bring it into their brains and they process it. And they figure out what it means to them. That is communication. So it may not look like what it does when you have a being standing next to your bed in the middle of the night, or you get beamed onto a ship, but it is a type of contact. And perhaps if we can think of it in that way, it's not really limiting. It just looks a little different from what we're accustomed to doing.
Mm-hmm.
So
sure. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So, Dave, I'm sure you've got more.
Well, I can't shake the feeling that this is too big for, again, the mass media or academia. It's just, or government. We're including all of government in that term, which is a whole lot of different agencies and different departments and everything. I can't, when you look at how our Congress operates or doesn't operate, it's, they have to move mountains to pass the most watered down legislation that compromises all over the place. For them as a group to be able to handle the consequences of ET contact or even UFOs, let alone the pilots, and the intelligences behind that phenomenon, it's just too much for them to, in the current state, to handle. So I think, and similarly, the media, they're very focused, other than the independent media, as Les pointed out, and thank God for the independence. We include ourselves in that, although on a much smaller scale. But the mass media is not capable of dealing with this either. And it's ironic because those are the institutions that we've set up and are even in the Constitution, protected in the Constitution, a free press, a government, democratic government, in their current states, I don't think they can handle this. So I think and the reasons for that are varied, I suppose, because there's a lot of self-interest. There's a ton of money. The defense industry is tangled up hopelessly in both those entities. Corporate America also, and the drive to make money off of everything and spin everything, I think, is just corrupted it so much that it can't possibly handle this phenomenon objectively. So it comes down to all of us, and it comes down to the contactees. And one of the biggest questions I've always had, and I know a lot of us have had over the decades of looking into this stuff, is that why do the aliens, as an umbrella term, why do they contact us one at a time? Why is it so slow? Why is it so hidden relatively? Do you, Les, believe or think that there could be a critical mass point or number where contactees, you get 1,000, 1,000,000, 10 million? Is there some sort of critical mass point where that accomplishes the assumed goal of bringing us into the cosmic community, so to speak? Is that the way to do it, rather than have the president stand up at the podium and say, we have been contacted by blah, blah, blah? Is that how it should be done and how it is being done?
Well, I think that's probably the game plan. And I like the term, and I've used that terminology before, critical mass. The Roper poll, organization did a poll back in '92, and it said that there was like 6 million people in the United States that had been contacted at that point. Now, move forward in time, and also the fact that this is a worldwide phenomena. It's going on all over the world, and we have people in the support group literally from all over the world that are talking 24/7. My latest theory on this, and you may think I'm crazy with this, I believe we've all had contact, whether we consciously remember it or not. And I'll tell you a story that in one of the support group meetings, a person one day said to me, I've seen you before. And I said, really? Where? At a UFO conference? No, I saw you on board the craft. I said, really? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And I kind of blew it off. And it was probably a year and a half, 2 years later, that totally different person said the same thing. I've seen you before. And I said, really? Where? A UFO conference? No. You were sitting on this bench naked on board the craft, and you were freaking out, and he told me to go over to you to calm you down. So at that point, I decided, okay, I'm going to go get regressed. I got to check this out. And I had 3 separate regressions. I had multiple past lives, and did not find out anything with regard to being on board a craft or anything like that. But it was shortly thereafter that I was talking to another person about that revelation, and they said, well, perhaps this person somehow saw you in a previous life, that you were actually abducted. And that's the thing about this phenomena. There's missing time, there's time compression. They bring you back before they take you. I mean, they do all kinds of things with time and space. They have that kind of capability, which seems like magic. As Arthur C. Clarke talks about, that these technologies are such that it looks like magic. But they figured out from a physics standpoint how this all operates and how it can be done. But yeah, as far as, so I believe, yes, that these people that are being abducted or having contact, they come away with a different worldview. And most of the time, it's a very positive worldview in the sense that we need to be better stewards of the planet. We need to be better to one another. We need to be more loving. These are all wonderfully positive things. And if we all wake up one morning and all are thinking the same way, we'll probably get rid of half or most of the politicians and come to the realization that we need to stop wars, that this is such a waste of money, and look at doing things a whole different way. And I think it will at some point reach critical mass, and that these things will fall into place. It's going to be a rough road in the meantime, and whether or not these hearings and what Chuck Schumer is doing as far as bringing up that bill, it's things to be seen, and we can only keep our fingers crossed that they're able to make progress. But it's certainly based on that yesterday, they're having a rough time getting done what they need to get done.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Opus and other groups are doing great work in that area, but I'd also like for you to talk a little bit about the research work that Opus has done. It not only supports and talks to experiencers, but really looks at the phenomenon to try to learn from it in a very rational way. So your book, which I have here, and it's available on Amazon. In this book, you talk about the omega-3 study.
Right. Yeah. And let me just read that information to you, because and I kind of highlighted a couple of things. In general, abductees and experiencers profile differently than do their comparison counterparts on a number of general psychological and specific neurological variables. Yet there are remarkable similarities between the experiential group and the comparison group. It should be noted that in no case did experiencers or comparison group participants show any signs of mental illness or personality disorder. Fantasy proneness does not appear to play a differentiating role between the experiential and the control groups. However, sensitivity to alternative realities and early and recurrent paranormal or psi experiences seem to play a role in the abduction experience. Childhood conflict, psychosocial tension, and abuse and trauma more likely facilitate a dissociative coping style in later life. How much a part dissociation plays in abduction experience remains an open question. But again, it's not, this dissociation is not a psychopathological situation for these people. Both experience with and interest in the abduction phenomena have impact on how one's body is perceived to function, how one views the world and one's purpose in it, and how one defines and redefines one's faith, tradition, and beliefs. In essence, both experience with and interest in contact seem to change one's sense of self and one's worldview. And that's what I mentioned earlier, that these people come away with these feelings that we need to be better stewards of the planet, we need to be more loving, we need to be better to one another. Abductees experiencers believe that there is a sentient, purposive alien intelligence at play in their lives and at work in the world. What the intelligence's goals are seem to be more beneficent than benevolent, more benign than malignant. This, though, remains an open question and a point of doubt in the minds and hearts of some abductees, experiencers, and some comparison control participants. This next one is really interesting. The brain generally, and the temporal lobes and limbic system more particularly, play a mediating role in anomalous experiences such as abduction. This in no way implies that the abductions are all or only in the abductees' heads. Rather, it points to the likelihood of the temporal lobe's lability, in other words, its reactivity, and a preset or a precursor to extraordinary experiences. While it would be too reductionistic to claim that the brain creates such experiences, it is not far-fetched to think that the brain plays an important part in the who and the what of extraordinary experience and how they are interpreted. So, so this is the kind of thing that we put this out there. It's on our website, and these are kind of things that we hope that when a new therapist comes our way, that they might read this and try to better understand that these people right away, because people think that they might be going crazy, but then they go to a psychologist, psychiatrist, and they find out they're not. So then what? What do you do with this phenomenon? And so hopefully this information will be helpful to them. And the report is 28 pages, way too long to go into it right now. But if you're interested, you can see it there, and then it's also in my book. Then a recent one, we've just finished the first phase of, where we went out to therapists and tried to understand the modalities that they utilize in helping their client base. And we ask questions like, what are your clients telling you that they're involved with? Well, the number one thing that most of them came back were the grays. And in most of these situations, the grays are there, but then there's also a mantid type, mantis type. There may be a reptilian type. There may be a Nordic type. There may be a military person involved. And so I always wonder, all these different groups are utilizing grays. There must be some kind of a universal store out there where they stop in and pick up a couple of grays. Okay, we want to use you guys, and you abduct this person, because we're pretty nasty people. I've had some of our abductees say that they bit the grays, or they ripped an arm off of one, and they don't seem to react in any, they're more robotic in nature. Let's put it that way. Which is a real theory that seems to be out there, that these things are more robotic in nature than anything else. So the grays were the number one thing. The second thing that people talked about was orbs. And this seems to be a lot more common now than ever before. You probably didn't hear about that, certainly during Adamski's times, nobody talked about those. But now it seems to be very prevalent. The third thing is interdimensional beings. And the fourth thing, poltergeist activity, ghosts. And they all seem to go hand in hand, that they're all connected in some way, shape, or form. So it's interesting, very interesting. And so we finished that, and we've sent that information out. It's also on our website. You can see all the detail, and it's quite extensive. Now the second phase, what we've done is in the process of going out to these therapists and to their clients with a HIPAA compliant questionnaire that's been reviewed by a review board. We hope to get that information coming back. And that's quite a long questionnaire, and we're just keeping our fingers crossed that people won't give up on us trying to fill out this questionnaire. Like 200 questions, so it'll take a while.
Yeah, very interesting. And certainly a few other groups have done extensive studies in the past, but to have this type of work done, to have these experiences looked at in a more rational way, or at least a quantitative way, I think is something that people can really respond to. And something that you mentioned is kind of crossing different types of experiences that seem to be sort of mixed. I remember in the early days, everything used to be separated. You had UFOs over here, and that's all that you talked about was UFOs. And then over here, you had people who were talking about strange experiences they were having. And somewhere in the middle, there was paranormal with ghosts and things like that. But everything was separate. Well, it's not like that anymore. And the experience are the ones who are driving these changes. They're the ones who are telling the things that they're learning, and we're able to share them with the public and with other researchers as well. So I guess maybe I have one more question, and then maybe David wants to kind of bring us back home. So after the many years of supporting and working with experiencers, what have you learned about the contact phenomenon generally, and what is happening to people? And where do you think we are going with this whole thing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Gwen. For me, it's been a journey for me of understanding. Like I said in the beginning, I was a nuts and bolts kind of a guy, and I've started to really understand that there's a lot more to life than this reality. We're dealing with another reality that exists, and it's always probably been here. It's part of the universal process, and so I think that this is going to continue, and that we are going to all move up to the next level as far as our understanding and being more open to these kind of things, and to accept them on a whole, basically a different way of looking at the whole phenomena. It's you can't get your arms around the whole thing. It's such a big thing. You know, once you go down this rabbit hole, there's so many different avenues you can take, and but I believe they all lead back to the same thing, and that is we are in constant movement energetically, and that we are learning always, and that this process is just something that is the way sources set it up, if you will. You know, whoever that may be. There seems to be some logic behind this whole thing to a certain degree. You know, people certainly ask, why me? Why is this happening to me? That's a very common question. And the simple answer on that is that I've just said this earlier. I think we've all had it. We've all been contacted, but a lot of us don't consciously recollect it. And this what I'm doing. Okay, I've tried to back out of this thing a couple of times over the years, and I can't. They won't let me. They won't. And so this is my mission in life, I suppose. And so that's a whole nother factor. I mean, you hear about, you know, this woman doctor who went on a kayaking trip down in South America and went over a falls and got trapped underneath the falls for over half an hour. And she saw these entities while she was in this situation. They were very loving. She didn't want to go back, and they said, no, you have to. You have things you have to do, and those are the kind of things that you hear, and you know who's in control of all of this. How do they know certain things are going to happen that you have to go back because there's things that you need to do. So I'm going all over the place here, but it's a big question that you asked. I mean, it's not an easy answer, but I think that we are going to continue to do what we're doing as best we can. As a matter of fact, just earlier today, I had a discussion with a couple of our other board members about the new website that's in progress, and so we're getting near the end, and hope to have a board meeting the third Sunday in August. So I'll put the word out on that here shortly, and hope to have that available to the board members at that time. By the way, Gwen's a board member of OPUS, so that was full disclosure.
Yeah, big questions, big answers. So, Dave, do you want to close us up here today?
Oh yeah, we're about an hour, a little bit over an hour. So it always goes so fast. We can always have Les back at some point if he
Sure.
would like to join us again.
Absolutely.
Especially after these coming we hope revelations. A few points that he brought up made me think. We've all, especially by my age, our ages, I guess, and include us all, we've all undergone anesthesia at some point, various surgeries or whatever. And you don't remember anything from that, right? So what Les is saying is that if we have the capability to create missing time, certainly we may have all been on board a spaceship at some point. We'd never know about it. It's kind of a freaky concept, a bit terrifying, a bit exciting, maybe, because we're here in one piece.
Right.
So that's something to think about. We may all be part of this group. It's just that we don't have the recollection that so-called contactees have. Another point that Les brought up is that I recalled a study that I had seen. It's a Journal of the Medical Society of New Jersey, 1969. The scientists there, it was quoted in J. Allen Hynek's seminal UFOs, a Scientific Inquiry book back in 1977. He quoted this or referred to this study. It was a survey of 3,400 mental patients. And what they discovered is they it revealed an utter lack of interest in UFOs among the mental patients, which is the opposite of the, with the cliche or the whatever, the typical view that's portrayed in media and other places trying to poke fun at this subject. So it may just be that the crazier you are, the less interested or the less likely you are to, invent a UFO scenario or something. So that's something to, consider, I guess.
Well,
we need more studies too.
Yeah, well, one of the things that has come up is that if a person is schizophrenic, let's say, and they have it's not how'd they put it? It doesn't mean that they can't have an experience. They could possibly have an experience and still be schizophrenic.
Yeah.
So, it gets muddied. The waters get muddied really quickly on all this stuff.
Yeah, we don't know what triggers the experience. We don't know what what wavelength it's happening on, or wavelengths, or so many more things to discover. Unfortunately, our scientific community does not show at least an open willingness to put themselves out there, and getting funding and all that is, the typical problem. So in an ironic way, at least to my mind, as Gwen mentioned at the beginning of these investigations, the studies, it was always a nuts and bolts thing. They're physical objects, as Les keeps saying. That's a great phrase. I use that for myself. I was a nuts and bolts guy until until you start listening to very credible people tell you incredible things, and you have a choice. Do you believe that was their experience, or do you call them crazy? Well, if you can't call them crazy legitimately, you have to take that experience at face value and do with it what you will. But once you hear so many people with similar experiences, you start thinking this is probably real, at least in some reality, at that moment. There are different types of realities possibly. Like Jacques Vallée said, what did he coin? He coined a term that I always try to remember, and I can't remember, an omniverse maybe, or omnijective.
Omniverse, I think, is the word.
Well, there was subjective and then objective, and
right,
something in between that varied. Anyway, the point is that the contactees were the marginalized group when we started the investigation, looking at just lights in the sky and metallic craft. Well, these people who were talking with the aliens were marginalized. Well, it turns out, in an ultimate twist, irony here, is that, as you two are saying, and as Opus is seeking to show, the contactees are where we need to go to unravel the mystery, I believe. As uncomfortable as it is, particularly for the scientific community, we need to go there and see what their experiences are, to understand this realm that we need to ultimately end up in as a human race, I think. Who knows when it's going to be? Is it going to be this year or 100? I don't know, but that's the direction that we're all going. That's what Les's last the last thing he talked about. That's what really got me off into that topic, that line of thinking. And I think you're on the right. We're on the right course, talking to the people who've had the contact. Yeah, I'm sure you don't get much funding, though. You can talk a little bit about how you get the funding.
Well, yeah, basically it's through donations, and we've been very lucky over the years to be able to have a fairly good level of donations that come in over the course of a year to help us, do our thing with our website and keep all those companies happy, and our Zoom monies, to when we do Zoom meetings and things of that nature. So yeah, there's expenses, but we try to keep it very, we don't have a physical, storefront or anything like that. This is all virtual, which is great. And until such time they make the internet a pay point of some sort. But no, your questions were really good, Dave and Gwen. Great questions, and I really appreciate being here. This has been fun, and I'd love to come back. Absolutely, we can go into some other things like about implants and things of that nature that people talk about. There's no proof. Guess what? We got some amazing proof.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Future show, there's so many more things to talk about, but I want to respect your time and keep it reasonable for the first time.
Sure.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
if you could let us know if someone wants to reach you or they want to reach Opus, where do they go? How do they do that?
Yeah, real simple. Just go to opusnetwork.org, which is here somewhere right there. The small print, opusnetwork.org. And then there's a support button on there. You can hit that. And if you want to contact us, if you're a therapist of some sort, hypnotherapist or a mental health practitioner, there's a contact button. You can hit that, and then we'll send you information on how to join our referral network. And then my number is in there somewhere on the site. I think it's on the page where we list the board members. So you can see my number there if you want to contact me personally.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
It was great talking to you. Look forward to talking to you again after all the fireworks happen here next week. We hope.
I can hardly wait to see that. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think we're ready to wrap the show today. Number 100. Wow, that's really exciting. And Dave and Dan have done an incredible job keeping this going, and all the wonderful guests that we've had. So happy 100th. And I guess we will look forward to seeing everybody again soon. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks again, Les.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Les.
Thank you.